I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're delving into the gripping life story told through a book, a memoir called Addicted and Convicted, Book 2. It's written by Gregory McPhee. This powerful narrative takes us through the harrowing experiences of addiction and the redemptive power of love and faith. Join us as we speak with Rose Sieverding, who has transcribed this memoir and put it down in a form that you will want to read over and over again. It's an incredible journey to both salvation and recovery. We're delighted to have this very talented person join us here today on Spotlight. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like Gregory by subscribing to this channel and by purchasing this wonderful book. The links are below this interview. Rose, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
And it's nice seeing you again, too.
Love having you on the show. You're one of my favorite guests. This book isn't written by you. It's written by Gregory McPhee, but you helped him with his notes and so forth. Tell us a little bit about the collaboration there.
Well, at the point that I met Gregory, and he had told me that he had been compiling these stories before 1989 even, and he was hoping that possibly of getting them published. And of course, at the point I met him, then he had said he needed a typist. And so I said, I'll do that for you. And it took me 2 years and 3 months to type the first book because it was a massive project and comparing so I would get the words right, that I would keep his style also in the book instead of actually making all the corrections. So it is his style. And if for some reason it doesn't kind of match up to how things should be written, that was Gregory. And so at that point, then I guess we worked on that and then we got the first book done. I never even dreamed that would ever happen. I was just typing them for him. And of course, I had said before that I had been out of town and he had died 15 minutes before I got back. And that was the really sad part of that day because I know when I said to him, I'll be back, Gregory, that he certainly was waiting for me. And so we had to say our goodbyes in that room, and it was tough. And still to this very day, I think of that and such a good friend, and basically knowing him so well just by typing these thoughts on paper.
You know somebody's mind when you help them write their memoir. I mean, your every thought they had, every experience they had, and plus you were friends on top of that. So you knew Gregory better than probably almost anybody else knew Gregory.
I did. He had some very good friends, that came from the reservation, and but I only met one. But he was the type of person that could meet anybody, and he would strike up a conversation with them because of his sincerity.
Hmm.
That's the thing people saw in him. He was very concerned about people, very hospitable to all people also.
Hmm.
So
How did you guys become friends?
just basically basically that first marketing meeting, and I basically said I have to meet this guy. So I rushed from the break and I talked to him, and he immediately told the story that I'm telling you. And I said, well, I'll do that for you. And at that point, one day I just drove to Sioux Falls to where he lived. And it wasn't a great part of town, but I knocked on the door and he had pumpkin pie and coffee for me. And I thought that was just fantastic. And then we just sat down in his very dingy home, discussed a lot of things, and away we went. And so I would continually keep in touch with him to how I was doing.
Right.
So that's kind of the start of it.
Nothing kicks off a relationship better than having a piece of pumpkin pie and coffee. You're making me hungry right now.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
that sounds great. That sounds great. So this is Addicted and Convicted Book Two. Tell us about the difference between this book and Addicted and Convicted Book One.
Well, as I kind of, when I did the press release,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of stated that this deals with the writings almost before 1989. That even though they're kind of basically the life he was living, these almost felt like these were the really old writings. The
Mm-hmm.
paper was very shredded, and it was very, and there were just, I could tell from that that's how it was. And I think I've also put, I've already talked about his family and things like that. And so just to say, I think the writings are very old compared to the new ones in the first book. So
Mm,
they're a little bit different, and yet they're the same.
right.
So, yeah,
So some of it's stylistic, which is part of it. As he got older, I guess he wrote differently, that kind of thing.
I think, there were more thoughts in his mind.
Yeah.
I do like the setup of the second book, how you made that design across the top of each
Mhm.
story. I like that. And I
Yeah.
like the first book too. And I'm wondering if there's something I had written down here that maybe um, about how a voice said his life was unique and his decisions from coming from a family that was
Mm,
very poor, as opposed to where I came from. We were like night and day,
right.
and that's why we got along so well,
Yeah.
because both of us on each side of the coin, we were very giving of each other. We were
Mm,
very concerned always. So even though we came from different parts of the world, we were basically the same.
like you were different but the same. There were commonalities there that bonded
Yes,
you. Yeah,
yes,
absolutely. Let
exactly.
let's give the folks at home an overview of what Addicted and Convicted is about.
Okay. Addicted and Convicted is about Gregory in his very early years of being abused in a family.
Mm,
I think, the type of friends that his parents had were not were not the best. And at that point, I think Gregory just felt kind of by the wayside. And so that caused, because there was a lot of drinking in the family, Gregory started that, and there wasn't enough money. So he was also stealing.
mm,
So some of that just were his decisions to survive.
yeah.
And fortunately, it took 38 years for Gregory to get out of that lifestyle and become the person that was so trusting, and he knew that the Lord was taking care of him at that point. So I think basically coming from his family, the way it went um, was the start of it, something that he couldn't control because that's how his family lived. I have not, I did not know his parents. Um, I think I've only spoken to his sister once, and I think I talked to his wife once also,
Mm,
but that's as far as we got. So yeah, so it's I do think that basically, well, Gregory found very comfort in loving a woman.
mm,
I think that's he was fine if that took place, but it's like if all of a sudden something didn't work out, he was gone and on to the next one. So I mean, he had a life that had dealt with a lot of women in it.
mm,
So he just was not finding security in one person,
right.
because I think maybe some women took advantage of him. I think that's
Mhm.
probably
Yeah.
maybe what happened too.
And so he had a lot of relationships, but no stability. And that was part of the story for sure. Obviously, it's called
Yes,
Addicted and Convicted. At what age did Gregory start using drugs and become addicted?
I think that he was very young, probably even in grade school,
Mhm.
because I think he was expelled from 8th grade. He might have been expelled from kindergarten. I mean, so it was going on continually. I do not think he finished high school. And then, of course, he uh, met some people in the neighborhood, some guys, and somehow he would bring home stolen items as kind of a compensation to his sister.
Mm.
And I think that's the word that I had used, that we had used together. So
Mhm.
he was doing that, and then furthermore, I think when he was really heavy into drugs, I think it was probably in the story called King Cobra, is
Mhm.
where that gives us the analogy of probably being on meth, LSD, something that was pretty hardcore for him to be able to survive or even write all of this.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
In Convicted, did he do time in jail?
yes, he did. And I think at the point he reached 38, the 38 years was around the time that he got out of prison.
Hmm.
So I think he was probably jailed in his 20s, but it wasn't until he was 38 or a little bit older that he was released.
Mm.
Mhm.
And he was jailed for using drugs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, basically, the other thing was he did kill a man,
Oh.
and it was at a party he was at. And there was a gentleman there that would not leave his wife alone. And he would keep saying to him, just leave my wife alone. Till finally he didn't. And he pushed him through a plate glass window.
Mm.
And he would not have had to serve any time had he called the
Police or
mass
whatever. Yeah.
to take care of him. But
Right.
he didn't do that. And so
Mm.
the guy,
Amazing.
the
It's an
guy died.
amazing journey. It's hard to believe that people have the lives they lead. When you knew him, he was a completely different man. You can't imagine something like that, I'd imagine as well, right?
Right. And, oftentimes, even when I think about myself, there are sometimes we don't make the best decisions. And yet we can't go back the
Yeah.
previous day and correct anything. But for the most part, most of us learn. But it took Gregory longer to learn to correct all these things. So
Also, it probably was impulse. He probably just shoved and didn't mean to kill him and knock him out a window.
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
He didn't really mean to. He was angry, but the fact that he disregarded what he did was the reason why he served some time.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Now, was this his wife, Teresa, who was with him at that point?
that's right. She
Yeah.
was with him at that point. And even to this very day, as far as I know, she does live in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Yeah.
Uh, I've only talked to her once, like I said, and basically, asking her, didn't you know Gregory was sick? Those type things. And
Right.
she really couldn't answer me in any way. So our conversation was real short. But I do have the leather Bible cover that he made for her while he was in prison.
Hmm.
So I've got some real memoirs here in
Yeah.
this box.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
but
What
like
was
I
his
say,
relationship like with Teresa? Was it troubled? Was it part of his addiction? Did it influence his journey? Tell us a little bit about that from reading the notes and what you know of what he's told you.
I think that he loved Teresa very much. And she would tolerate a lot of his things that he did. And at one point, I think it was like she just left because things were not changing. So that's why they were never divorced, but they never lived together either. Once she left, that was it.
Hmm.
I don't think he ever saw her again. even though she was that close in Sioux Falls.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think she just got tired of it.
Yeah.
And this is not going to change. I just need to leave.
Right.
I think basically that was her feeling.
But he did change, right?
But he did, uh, not to the point that he ever went back, not to the point that he ever went back to her. I think he was concerned, and that kind of makes me wonder. Once he got to this point and he changed, did he try to get in touch with her again? Or were there just other people that were there with him that he met where that just never happened?
Right. As far as his addiction goes, was he ever able to beat that?
Oh, definitely.
Hmm.
Definitely. He beat all of that. He got off alcohol, he got off the drugs, and basically he just, he was reading the Bible, and he basically was just asking for the Lord to take care of him. And so he had beat all of that. And that was the great thing when you would see him. He was just a wonderful person. He was very happy with himself.
Hmm.
And he just yeah.
And
So
he had a strong connection to Native American culture and spirituality. Did that help in his healing process?
oh, definitely. I think it did, because I think he had been at several reservations, and I think there was a place up north, like by Wahpeton, North Dakota, where I think he might have known some artists.
Mm-hmm.
And so from one of the addresses I have, that's where I think that he was very closely tied to the land with those type of people. So he just yes.
Yeah. What kind of work was Gregory doing when you met? Was he still working?
Uh, no, he wasn't. He had been a painter up in Washington State,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when I think he had an accident falling off a ladder, which started his medical problems. And then I never knew of Gregory doing anything down here. He had some family in California, but I don't know if he did anything down here.
Yeah.
Just,
How many
he
years
just
did
kind of kept writing.
how many years did you know him?
Oh, my boys came back from Iraq, or let's see, what year would that be? Because this first book was published in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back about 2 to 3 years. So that would have been about 2008 that I met him. And let's see, I think the boys came back from, oh, not Iraq, but another place. And that would have been that would have been probably the 09, 10. So yeah, right in that area, I could say I knew him since about 08.
Okay. Okay. And what year did he pass? Was it a couple of years ago or a decade
No,
ago?
no, no. It's been, if this first book came out in 11,
Right.
I think probably we're talking maybe up to about 14.
Right.
About
Well, it's nice that
14.
he was alive then when the first book came out. He got to see his story in print, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And now
Yeah.
I'm even doubting that if for some reason we just did the publishing, and I don't know if we talked to each other about that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't really say that for sure.
Right.
If
Right.
it was 2014, I seem to recall. I don't think
Right.
it was that late, but
Right.
um,
Did Gregory write anything else besides his memoir, besides his life story?
did he write anything else?
Yeah. Did he write any other books?
No,
No. No.
no.
Okay. Amazing, amazing. Well, he was blessed to have met you to help him bring his stories to life. That's for sure. How long did it take you to get book two together?
Oh, not very long. Um, oh God, I'm saying probably maybe 6 months,
Okay.
because
Gotcha.
at that point I kind of knew where I saved everything. I kind of
Hmm.
knew how he wrote. So I'm saying anywhere from 6 to 9 months.
Gotcha. Gotcha. What message do you hope readers will take away from his story?
Well, I will hope that the readers will take from this story that there's always hope. There's always hope in anything that you might have some problems with.
Mhm.
There's somebody to go to. And and he was very big on just being a Christian.
Mhm.
And so reading the Bible and things like that, but just finding a group that really could give you hope if you
Mm.
have any problems at all.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big part of the book, that there is hope, that there is salvation, and that faith certainly helps you during these times of struggle, without a
That's
doubt.
exactly, yep,
Yeah.
exactly right. Yeah, if you're struggling, you need somebody, and
Right.
there's always somebody that you can help you, even though you think nobody cares.
Yeah.
So there's always somebody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what do you think your relationship with Gregory, did it change you? Did it impact you knowing his story, knowing his life?
It did, because the comparison of what he was writing reminded me of my own brother, who
Mm,
had very much the same addictions, who left this area and went down to Arizona to live.
mm,
And at that point, he was there long enough to become a citizen of Arizona, and that's where he died.
mm,
And it was during a time that I was going through cancer and chemo
mm.
that he was down there and died, and I was just in shock.
Yeah.
And so we had to bring him back here. And in Gregory's case, where he went, he was sent to California.
Mm,
So the comparison of us both on how they left this world was just impacted me, that I needed to take care of some of these things which I had never done before.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, your friendship with Gregory, was it mostly remote, or did you see each other from time to have like a glass of wine and talk and that kind of stuff so you could
It,
get information for the book? Tell us a little bit about how you collaborated with him on the book.
yes, I would. He had this apartment,
Hmm.
and I would go visit him there. And that's when this Francis Eagledale Jr. was there,
Hmm.
and he was just a gem. And but yeah, we would have something to drink there,
Yeah.
always hospitable. It's
Yeah.
the only place I can remember that he lived.
Right.
That he lived, other than that first house when I went to see him. But he was in there, and so, yes, I would see him from time to time.
Right.
Um, and I don't know if he had a phone, so I
Mhm.
wasn't able to talk to him, but he
Mhm.
was in Sioux Falls and I knew where he lived. So,
Right. When he passed, you said he was in California?
no, no, when he
No, no.
passed away, he was at this kind of a nursing home on Norton Avenue in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Mm,
And he evidently had gotten ill and had to go there. And that's where, when I went to see him, he had died 15 minutes before I got there.
yeah. Wow.
So I was just in that room, just holding his hand. And I said, Gregory, I told you I was coming back. But, but at least I spent those last 15 minutes beyond him dying that kind of satisfied me, and it was just a great few minutes for me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, you've done a great thing by him where you have immortalized him and immortalized his legacy by helping to tell his story. So his story doesn't die with him. His story lives now, not in one book, but in two books. So you've done
Exactly.
something really, really great. So he was blessed to know you, and you certainly were a wonderful friend to him. Rose Sieverding has helped bring to life a terrific series of books. They're called Addicted and Convicted, Book One and Book Two. They're more or less the same book, but there are more detail in Book
Right.
Two and a little change in the narrative in Book Two. It tells the story of Gregory McPhee, a man who lived a troubled life at times, but had turned it all around and was one of the kindest, nicest people that
Yeah.
Rose had ever met and was lucky enough to call friend. It is a powerful book that takes us through the harrowing experiences of addiction and the redemptive power of love and faith. Rose, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate your time. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time until next time on Spotlight.